Shalom, Shavua Tov, everyone. Greetings from Baruchim Habayim from Yerushalayim, and welcome to Tanya at CY, our third class together as part of our distant learning program. Welcome back. What I'd like to do is to briefly recap what we learned last week, and then summarize what's ahead of you for this week. Before I go into that, though, I would just like to mention that some of the insights that have been posted in the discussion forum have been so wonderful. I would love to see and encourage all of you to post even more. While we can't enjoy the luxury of all of us being in Yerushalayim together at CY in the Beit Midrash, I really sense that the more people will offer insights, ask questions, we'll begin to gel in terms of a group. And we'll have that sense of we're learning together with Chavruta, with a group, and we're really learning and becoming each other's teachers and each other's students. So continue, and I will do my best, Be'ezrat Hashem, to always respond within 24 hours, to keep the discussion, to moderate and facilitate it. But remember, you are as much, all of you, each one of you is as much of a teacher to me as I may be to you. Okay. That being said, I do want to address one topic that has been coming up throughout the different discussion forums the past couple of weeks, and that is the Baal HaTanya's usage of the words Tov and Ra, good and evil. And I want to be more sensitive now that I'm getting a sense through people coming forth and expressing themselves. I'm getting a better sense of the diversity of background in Hebrew. So I'll be more careful, I hope. I'll be more careful whenever I use a Hebrew word to also provide the English translation. So when the Baal HaTanya discusses Tov V'Ra, and it's worth spending a minute or two on this topic, the Baal HaTanya is teaching, as we know, Chassidut. This is not a body of halacha, of Jewish law, and the halachic literature has a different understanding and expresses the word good and bad differently. Likewise, even the books of Musar, which address ethical behavior, self-improvement, address Tov and Ra, good and bad, surely not as much from a legal point of view, but it's not similar to addressing Tov and Ra through the lens of Chassidut. So in Chassidut, there is not a judgment of, like an ethical judgment or a value judgment, a character judgment, when we say, oh, this person is good or this person is bad. And again, I'm not even referring halachically here in terms of an infraction or an observance of a law. In the eyes, through the lens of Chassidut, there's a big, big difference. And I would always draw your attention to reminding yourselves of this, that good, through the lens of Chassidut, specifically in Tanya, through the Baal HaTanya, the Alter Rebbe in Yiddish, good means connection. So when I make a choice in the way what I decide to think about and ponder on, what I decide to speak about, how I decide to behave, if I make a choice to nurture and further the connection that I'm sensing with God, that's good. And of course, I'm in partnership. I'm in partnership with God because God has revealed to me through the Torah, traditionally, through the lens of Chassidut, that the 613 mitzvot and all the thousands and thousands of halachot come to teach me all different channels and opportunities within which I can nurture the connection. Again, it's not as much of a legal type of a language, it's more of a spiritual/emotional state. Now, when I'm making decisions in what I choose to think about, what I'm speaking about, how I behave, that are ra, that are evil, what's evil about it is it disconnects me. So connection can be looked at as achdut, as unity, and ra, disconnection, can be looked at as fragmentation. Likewise, connection through tov is when I am not only nurturing the connection, but I'm revealing who I'm in relationship with. If I make bad decisions, ra, and I'm disconnecting, and I'm causing fragmentation, what I'm doing then is concealing the presence of God in my life and in the world. So again, just these quick words in summary: tov, good, equals connection, equals unity, equals revelation. Evil, ra, equals disconnection, fragmentation, concealment. So I hope that will help you better understand when the Baal HaTanya uses these adjectives to describe anything. Okay, now on to our recap. So in chapter 2, we see, I made a mistake there. Okay. In the most recent chapter that we studied in last week, we see the Baal HaTanya discusses the 10 faculties or powers through which the godly soul manifests itself. Now, being a part of Hashem, like we learned in chapter 2, that the godly soul, the Nefesh Elokit, is a Chelek Elokah Mema'al Mamash, which was the pasuk in Job, that the godly soul is literally a part of God from above, and the Baal HaTanya is the word Mamash, to emphasize that it's not to be taken figuratively, rather it is literally. Therefore, being a part of Hashem, these 10 bechinot, these 10 faculties or manifestations, actually mirror or correspond to the 10 holy sfirot. Now, what are the holy 10 sfirot? And that was part of the discussion, one of the discussions on the discussion forum. They're basically 10 manifestations of God's creative powers in the created world. So, i.e., they become what we call the spiritual blueprint, just the way we have a physical blueprint of a building. So the 10 sfirot they become the spiritual blueprint for all of creation. Now, these 10 bechinot, then within the soul, also within the sfirot, and hence in the soul, these 10 soul powers or manifestations by which the soul is making itself known, subdivide into 2 general categories. The first being the intelligence, the seichel, up here. The remaining 7 are in the heart, the emotional attributes, the midot. So you have seichel and midot, intellect and emotional attributes. Now the intimate, I would say even dependent relationship between the seichel and the midot, meaning the former produces or gives birth, as the Baal HaTanya uses that phrase, to the latter, is also part of this discussion. Now the next chapter discusses the levushim, the garments. Now the garments, why do we wear clothes? All right, aside from the laws of modesty, ever since we were expelled from the Garden of Eden, what clothes allow us to do, aside also from protecting us from the weather, especially if it's cold, what clothes allow us to do is to reveal ourselves to the world. So, and everyone has a unique outfit unless one's wearing a uniform, which in that case one's reflecting or expressing a part of one's identity. So the way we choose to dress ourselves expresses something inside of who we are. So while the 10 soul powers, or the 10 ways by which the soul is manifested, are identical to every Jewish person, and here we're talking specifically about a Jewish person, how I choose to reveal it, how I choose to express it, and how the person next to me chooses to reveal and express those 10 soul powers or faculties is different. So these 3 garments, machshava, dibur, and ma'aseh, the world of action, are different for everyone. So we're all revealing, just like when we get dressed and we go out into the market, or we go to work, or we go out into the street. We all are revealing to the world that we all have the same human body. We're part of the same species called the Homo sapien, the human being. However, the way I reveal my body, and it's an interesting paradox, because how do I reveal my body? By concealing the body. But what I conceal the body with are called garments, and they allow me to express something behind it. So there's the lavush, and then there is what the lavush is revealing. So the lavush, the way we think, the way we speak, the way we behave, provides the context. It's more like the form, and then the content would be these 10 manifestations of the soul. Machshava, thought, dresses up, so to speak, chokhmah, bina, and dat, the 3 faculties, powers, manifestations of the seichel, and then dibur and ma'aseh reveals the remaining 7 of the powers, which are the emotional attributes. Okay. Now, this week I provided for you, we're going to discuss and explore an excerpt from chapter 6 and from chapter 7. Now, in chapter 6, we begin with a pasuk from Kohelet, from Ecclesiastes, right from the very beginning. In 7:14, Zion Yud Dalet. And that's where the Baal HaTanya takes from this pasuk, his understanding of the pasuk, is where everything has its counterpart. Everything has its opposite. V'hinei zeh le'umat zeh asa Elokim. So God made everything to have its opposite. So chapter 6 addresses now the composition of the nefesh habehemit, this other soul, the soul that we learned about at the end of chapter 1. Now the Baal HaTanya in chapter 6 discusses how it actually is a parallel, but on the other side, there's the side of Kedusha, then there's the other side, and in fact, the way that soul manifests itself. So it would be interesting if you, and I hope we can see this on the discussion forum, how you're sensing the difference and also the similarity. There is most definitely, though, a parallel, but there's clearly a unique difference between the 2. And then the Baal HaTanya begins to discuss the Sitra Achra, also what the other side means. What does that imply relative to God's existence being revealed or concealed? And again, I want you to focus, I would like you to focus not on so much as on God's existence. From the Baal HaTanya's point of view, it's a given when he published this book that people believed in the existence of God. He was speaking to an audience that already believed. Not that he never spoke to people who were wondering if they believed. But this book in particular does not so much address, do I believe in God or not? It's, what do I do with the belief? Meaning, do I sense God in my life, in the world, or not? And how is that achieved? So God's existence and God's presence are very, very, very different. So the Sitra Achra, the other side, compared to Tzad Kedusha, the holy side, have more to do with God being concealed or God being revealed, rather than God existing. Also, what's important and what's fascinating is how the Baal HaTanya introduces to us what we, as an individual, what our role is in this revelation or, God forbid, concealment. What do we need to do? In this, he's already introducing a very, very major component of all the works of Chassidut, that we are in an active, dynamic relationship with Hashem. We co-create the relationship, hence our experience of our created being in the world. We are co-creators with Hashem. The end of chapter 6, so the end of chapter 6 and then going into chapter 7 then focuses on this term klipa, husk or appeal. And that's where the verse in Yechezkel, in Ezekiel in the beginning, that would be in Aleph Daled, Parak Aleph, Pasuk Daled, chapter 1, verse 4 in Ezekiel, mentions this vision that Ezekiel had of the divine chariot. And there he mentions 4 different, I'd say, adjectives or conditions through which he understood and perceived this revelation. 3 actually darkened or were violent. We may even say negative or ra, in light of the lens, looking at it through the lens of Chassidut. And the 4th was actually the word noga, translucent or luminous. So at the end of chapter 6 this week, you'll see how he discusses what's called shalosh klipot hatamayot legamre, the 3 complete impure klipot, which would be the first 3, as you'll see in the verse in Ezekiel. And that's utter concealment. We would say that's opaque in terms of look. If you envision, let's say, the shell of a walnut, you don't get a sense of the nut by just looking at the shell. However, this 4th klipa, which is called from the verse noga, which means luminous, it implies translucence rather than opaqueness. For example, the peel of a grape. You can see the grape through the peel. And what does that mean spiritually? Well, I leave that up to you as to figure out and to explore and to hopefully become inspired as you proceed through this week's text. So I think, according to my notes, that is the summary, a recap from last week, what you can look forward to this week. I would only like to end by saying I hope everyone can access the video. I still don't know what the problem was. I was unable to speak with anyone at CY for various reasons. I'm hoping, though, that this week will be much more easy for you to access this YouTube recording. And please, of course, don't be shy. Let me know, in fact, if you're still having trouble. I wish you an amazing, wonderful, wonderful week. And I look forward to both responding and receiving and sharing with you all the different insights, questions, and answers on our discussion forum. Have a great week. Shavua Tov, Kol Tuv, V'Lehitraot.